We are in the third grade My World Interactive History and Social Science book. We are going to work on pages 36 through 49 today. American Indians in California. The big question, how did the first people in my community live? Throughout history, geography has played a big role in how people lived. Geography still has an impact today. Work with a partner to create a list of activities that people do in your community that depend on geography. Remember the main features from Chapter 1, deserts, mountains, valleys, hills, coastal areas, oceans, and lakes. So right here, you can make a list of activities people that in our community do depending on geography. So like they go to the mountains and go camping, that depends on geography. They go to the coast and look at the ocean, that depends on geography. They go to the lake and go fishing, that depends on geography, okay? All right, settling down. Preview the chapter vocabulary as you sing the rap. 10,000 years ago, people came to this place, following their food or animals they'd chase. They came to California as it's known today. They settled and called it home, and were here to stay. The variety of land throughout the region allowed groups to thrive from season to season. Hunting and gathering is how they met their needs. So many foods, animals, berries, nuts, and seeds. They modified the land in order to thrive here, like building dams to trap the salmon, called the weir. Many Indian customs are still in effect, traditions kept alive today in full respect. Page 38. Life today and long ago. Was daily life in California long ago very different than it is today? Comparing your daily life with the life that California Indians lived long ago is a great way to learn about them. Quest kickoff. Can you help me tell people how life today is alike and different from how American Indians lived in the past? You can write about it so others can learn. Ask questions. What is your daily life like? What foods do you eat? What clothes do you wear? What do you do for fun? So I want you to answer those questions here. So usually maybe you have cereal, maybe you wear a t-shirt and shorts, and for fun you like to play games or go play with friends. Plan. What do you need to know about how California Indians lived? What kind of pictures or other sources might help? Write down some ideas. So it might be nice to see what a school-age child that was Native American, how they lived, how California Indians lived long ago. Might be nice to see how they ate, what kind of foods they ate, or maybe what they played with, maybe some of their toys. Those would be good pictures to see. Look for quest connections. Turn to the next page to begin looking for quest connections that will help you write your informative explanatory text. Number 4, write your informative explanatory text. Use the quest findings page at the end of the chapter to help you write your informative explanatory text. So we'll do that later. Lesson 1, California Indians. The big question. I will know the names, characteristics, and history of California Indians. What might California have looked like more than 10,000 years ago? Would the plants and animals have looked different? How about the land? Stand with a partner and share what you think might look the same and what might look different. So share with someone in your family how California might have been the same and different 10,000 years ago. Many scientists believe people first came to North America from Asia. They became hunter-gatherers in places like California. More than 10,000 years ago, the first people to live in California arrived. Many scientists believe they came from Asia, following groups of animals that they could hunt and eat. Over time, these people stayed in California. There, they began to settle or organize and live on the land. The first Californians. The first people who settled in California lived among many landforms and bodies of water. These included forests in the north, deserts in the southeast, what were then marshes in the Central Valley, and California's coast along the Pacific Ocean. To survive, early Californians learned to adapt to and modify their environment. California's physical geography also had many natural resources that helped them to adapt. The different landforms of each region affected how each group of California Indians lived. They used their region's resources in many ways. For example, early Californians lived as hunter-gatherers. They hunted animals and gathered nuts and plants for food. They used the resources around them to build homes on mountains, in valleys, along the coast, and in deserts. By about 500 years ago, nearly 300,000 people probably lived in California. California Indians did not have a lot of conflict with other groups. In fact, many groups traded goods with each other. And conflict, another word would be disagreement. Reading check. Underline the ways early Californians used their region's resources. So you're going to underline that they hunted animals, they gathered nuts, and some of the other natural resources that helped them along the way. Page 42. California Indian groups. Hundreds of American Indian groups lived in their own communities across what is today the state of California. They developed their own ways of life and spoke their own languages: Shasta, Yurok, and Hupa. In the Northwest, Indian groups, including the Shasta, Yurok, and Hopa, settled around the deep redwood forests. People in these groups modified the environment to meet their needs. They cut down the giant trees and carved canoes out of them. Then they traveled on rivers in the canoes to search for food. They also used the wood to make houses. For food, people fished for salmon along the forest streams. Modoc. A group called the Modoc lived in the northeast among marshes, rivers, and lakes. The Modoc used many plants as a food source and as medicine. They also used plants for clothing and baskets. They hunted antelope, deer, sheep, and birds. Washoe. The Washoe lived in the Sierra Nevada mountains. They hunted animals such as rabbit, antelope, and deer. The Washoe and other groups that lived in the mountains depended on plants that grew there. The Washoe are known for their beautiful baskets. Circle the California Indian group on the map that lives nearest to your community. So let's look here at the map. And we live in the Central Valley. So our group, we're in the San Joaquin Valley. Probably be this one here, which is the Yokuts. And if you look here at the legend, the Yokuts are the group that live closest to us. Miwok and Yokuts. Today, California's Central Valley is an area of rich farmland. However, long ago, much of this land was watery marsh. California Indians in this area depended on gathering resources rather than farming to survive. For example, the Miwok and Yokuts hunted deer, rabbit, and elk. They also picked acorns and fished for salmon in rivers. Pomo. California Indian groups that lived along California's Pacific coast depended on the ocean to survive. The ocean was a source of food for all coastal people. People caught fish and shellfish. They trapped seals and sea lions too. These animals provided fur that could be made into warm clothing. Some Pomo villages were located inland. In the Russian River Valley, these groups searched for animals and plants in nearby forests. They also fished for salmon in inland streams. Salmon could be eaten fresh or dried and eaten later. Some California Indian groups hunted elk. Word-wise. Context clues can help you understand what a word means, even a word you already know. Read the last sentence under the heading Pomo. Suppose you did not know what the word fresh meant. The next phrase, or dried and eaten later, gives context. It helps you know that fresh salmon was eaten right away because they dried the others. The Gabrielino used the resources along the coast for food and clothing. This modern photo shows a traditional Gabrielino celebration. Gabrielino Tongva lived along the southern coast where Los Angeles and Orange County are today. This group settled there because of the many resources available to them. They hunted, fished in lakes and streams, and picked acorns and other plants. They used tule, a long grass, to make their homes. Mojave and Yuma. Among the California Indian groups that settled in the southeastern desert were the Mojave and the Yuma. Long ago, the area that is now the Mojave Desert was much greener. The Colorado River would flood every year. This allowed the Mojave to farm crops like corn. The Yuma farmed pumpkins, melons, and beans. Reading check. Main idea and details. Fill in the chart and identify details about California Indian groups and environments or regions in which they lived. So you find the forest. We're going to go find the group that lived in the forest. So you're going to go back into the text and see which group lived in the forest. So we'll go here. In the Northwest, Indian groups, including the Shasta, Yurok, and Hoopa, settled around the deep redwood forest. So you can write Shasta, Yurok, or Hoopa. Write any of those here. Shasta. I'm going to spell these correctly. So I'm going to go back. Yurok. Y-U-R-O-K. Sorry. And Hoopa. H-U-P. Now the Washoe, now all you have to do is go back, find the Washoe, and where did they live? The Sierra Nevada mountains. So here you're going to write mountains, okay? So Central Valley, go back in the text, find the group that lived there. Pomo and Gabrielino, where did they live? And which group lived in the desert? You're going to put that here. Lesson check. Give 2 examples of how California Indians modified their natural environment. So go back, maybe you could say they farmed different things like corn and melons and beans, or they used the tule to build their houses. Those would be a couple of examples. Number 5, how did California Indian groups living near the ocean use that resource? So that resource would be the ocean. How did they use the ocean? And number 6, why do you think the Mojave and Yuma did not leave the hot, dry desert of the southeast and settled somewhere else? So why do you think the Mojave and Yuma? So go back and read that and think about it. Why would they stay there? Why would they not settle somewhere else? Page 48. Main idea and details. A paragraph usually has a main idea and supporting details. Finding these parts can help you understand important ideas about a subject. The main idea tells what the paragraph is about. Often the first sentence of a paragraph is the main idea. The details support or tell more about the main idea. The Puyo Kawichum, also called the Lewis Singno, a California Indian group, lived near what is today Los Angeles. They depended on the area's many resources. Those living inland in the valleys gathered acorns, seeds, and fruits. They also hunted using bows and arrows. Those living along the Pacific Ocean fished for shellfish like crabs and mussels. Use the organizer on the next page to list the main idea and supporting details of the paragraph you just read. As a first step, find a partner and take turns reading the paragraph to each other. And this shows a woman stands next to an ola, a jar used to hold water. So here's a picture. After reading and listening to the paragraph, fill in its main idea in the organizer below. Then fill in the 3 supporting details. So the main idea is that these people called, I can't see the name very well, it starts with a P, P-A-Y-O-M-K-A-W. So P-A-Y-O, it has a little line, M-K-A-W-I-C-H-U-M, lived in what is today Los Angeles. And then the supporting detail is they depended on the resources. They gathered acorns, nuts, and seed. They hunted using bows and arrows. And they also fished for shellfish, crab, and mussels. So you're going to see they use the area's resources and then explain which resources they were using here. And the bottom says, read the paragraph in lesson 1 under the heading Shasta, Yurok, and Hoopa. Write the main idea and supporting details. So let's go back to Shasta. On page 42, in the Northwest, Indian groups, including the Shasta, Yurok, and Hoopa, settled around the deep redwood forest. People in these groups modified the environment to meet their needs. So the main idea here would be that the Shasta, Yurok, and Hoopa modified the environment to meet their needs. And then one of the details would be, how did they do that? So go back to page 42, and let's see. They would take the trees and carve canoes. They traveled in the river to get their food, and they fished for salmon. So those are 3 details, but you only need to write one of those details here. So the main idea would go here, that they use the environment for their food, and then you can just do 1 supporting detail. So main idea, and then 1 supporting detail here.